Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, much like yesterday, I want to start off the show with the pressers that were had this afternoon. Bill Callahan, the interim head coach, stepped to the podium, as well as defensive coordinator Greg Minovsky. I'm going to tell you right now, Greg Minovsky really had nothing for us. He hates doing these things just as much as we hate listening to him do these things. So he makes it a very easy transition out of there. It's usually 3 to 4 minutes or less. He's in, he's out. He really answers the questions as indirectly as he can. Generally, you don't get direct answers. He talks around the questions, and then he gets the hell out of there. And at this point, we really don't care. But before I even get to any of the press conferences today, I do want to make a couple of announcements. Number one, I am going out of town, and I do not know exactly when I will be back, whether that will be Sunday or Monday. Either way, if I'm able to get in front of a television to watch the Redskins game, because I will be in Cincinnati, so obviously not a local market. If I'm able to get in front of a television and watch the Redskins game, I will do an R3 from my cellular device, okay? So it will not be the bells and whistles that you're accustomed to, but if you're just looking for a quick analysis of the game, I'll be able to give that to you in quick, rapid fashion. And again, it'll be on my cellular device, so it won't be the best in terms of aesthetics, but it'll be a breakdown of the game, essentially. So just wanted to throw that out there. Also, because I don't know exactly which day I'll be back and when I'll be back on that day, don't know about the Redskins Nightly News on Monday. So just keep that in mind as well. I will send out tweets letting you know if there will be a show on that particular day or not. The R3, I will let you know via Twitter. Same can be said for the Redskins Nightly News on Monday as well. So stay tuned to your social media, whether it's YouTube or Twitter, which I'll probably do most of my communicating through Twitter. Just make sure you're keeping an eye on that if you're looking for content from me. Obviously, if something breaks with Bruce Allen and I'm out of town, you'll probably get it from my cellular device once again. And then once I get home and I get in front of my camera with all of my different things around me and my setup, I'll be able to give you a more formal video. But at this point, you guys probably could care less about how the presentation comes to you if the news that I'm delivering is that of Bruce Allen being out of town, then I'm pretty sure you'll be ecstatic to get it any way you can. But look, speaking of that situation, a lot of you were antsy. You were anticipating something being done this week. I told you I wasn't sure that something was going to get done this week. I'm still of the mindset that if something were to occur, and remember, I'm only at 33%, but if something were to occur, I think it would be at the end of the season. I still am in the mindset that until something happens, nothing's happening. Okay, and that's why I won't move the percentage. I'm not moving it again. Nothing will get me to move it again unless someone like Adam Schefter, and it'll probably have to be Adam Schefter, probably not Ian Rappaport, but maybe one of those guys comes out and says, tomorrow the Redskins plan on firing, or Bruce Allen decides or has decided that he wants to retire or resign at season's end. Unless something like that comes out, the percentage isn't moving from 33%. I'll keep it there because that's a nice, safe number. What I'm saying is that there's a third of a chance that Bruce Allen is no longer employed by the Washington Redskins, and there's a 2/3 of a chance that he will be back next season as team president and all of the other hats that he wears in this organization. So nothing has happened this week. I don't anticipate anything happening because the league meetings ended yesterday, and they're back in Washington, I presume, or back in the DMV area, I presume. And they were just out at dinner the other night. I don't think anything's taking place right now. Again, if something were to transpire, it could be next week, could be the week after that, or it could just be at the end of the season. Either way, if you're looking for Bruce Allen news, you just need to be patient. That's all I can tell you. That's the best advice I can give you is don't anticipate, all right? Don't wait And every time you hear a notification, jump to your phone to see if that's the one. Just let it happen. Let it happen. And when it does, you'll be just as excited as if you were looking for it on Christmas Day. All right. Whether you get it on New Year's Eve, or you get it on Christmas Day, or you get it tomorrow, or you don't get it until January 14th. It really doesn't matter. As long as you get it, you'll be fine. So I'm just telling you, much like with Dwayne Haskins and this team overall, I'm preaching patience. Okay. So, and I know you're like, look, we've had 10 years of this. To hell with patience. I get that too. Okay. Anyway, back to the lead story tonight. And that's the press conferences of Greg Minovsky and interim head coach Bill Callahan. So as I mentioned, Minovsky really didn't have much to say. So really, he is irrelevant. He did say that, they've got to be better in the first 15 that they script. He said, just like the offense, the defense scripts for the first 15 plays. And as you can see, the last 2 weeks, we've given up 14 points. So in each of those two games, in the first 15. So he said, look, we got to be better in our first 15 that we script for the game. We got to go out and execute better. Duh. All right. That's like talking about communication all season long, which we haven't had. And that's like talking about executing like he's talked about all season. And at times we haven't done that either. So anyway, and also his other favorite thing to say is we need to get more pressure. And we'll find ways to do that. Okay, cool. Nice. That sounds great. But I thought Callahan's presser was actually pretty interesting. And the biggest takeaway from his presser is that, one, he tried to throw Jay Gruden under the bus. Another little pop shot, pop, pop, pop. Warning shots fired again. But at this point, we're past warning shots. I mean, he's aiming in the direction of Jay Gruden. Pop, 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 pop. He let off about 9-10 rounds as soon as Jay was fired. And every now and again, he loads up the gun and lets off a couple more rounds. Pop, pop, pop. And today was one of those days that he decided to let off a few shots in Jay's direction when they asked him about Dwayne Haskins and his development, because they started out the presser talking about Adrian Peterson and how impressive he's been, and the goal of getting 1,000 yards is within reach again for him. Is that a standard still in the league, or? Because I've always said that 1,000 yards is really not that big of a deal anymore. 1,000 yards was a milestone when it was a 14-game season. 1,000-yard rusher in a 16-game season, if you play in all 16 games, I think it amounts to something like 63 yards per game. If you just rush for 63 yards per game, you're going to end up with 1,000 yards rushing. It's something like that, somewhere in the 60s. You know what? I'm curious now, so I'm going to do the math. I think it's something like 63.7. I did it a long time ago, but I don't remember, so I'm going to do it really quickly just to see. 62.5, all right? You gain 63 yards. Let's just round it up. 63 yards a game for 16 games. You're going to rush for 1,000 yards. That's not very many yards per game. So 1,000 yards isn't really the milestone. Now, when you're the age of Adrian Peterson, then yeah, 1,000 yards means a lot. And, that's still the marker that they go by. But for real, to be honest with you, a 1,200-yard season should be the goal for every back going into the year. 1,200 yards in a season means you're probably up around 80 yards. And let's see what that number is. 1,200 yards in a 16-game season, to me, is a much more respectable number. That's 75 yards a game. So let's up that to 1,300. I think that's going to get you right around 80. Yep, 81.25. So 1,300 yards should be the milestone for any back. And really, the number where you say, man, that guy had a hell of a season is 1,500. You hit 1,500, you were doing some work. Anything above 1,500, and you had yourself one hell of a season as a running back. So 1,000 yards, not what it used to be, but for a guy like Adrian Peterson up there in age, 1,000 yards is a hell of a milestone, especially considering that he didn't even play in week one. He's been splitting carries with Darius Guy since he's come back. He didn't get a lot of carries to begin with Jay Gruden here as the head coach. He didn't start actually getting the rock on a consistent basis until Callahan took over, and that wasn't until week 6. So it's actually quite amazing to see where Adrian Peterson has gotten. He's still got a ways to go, and he's still going to need some big games down the stretch, but with no guys in sight now, and no one stopping him from getting 22, 23 carries each game down the stretch, who's to say that he doesn't end up with 1,000 yards again? We'll see. Depends on how the team run blocks and how the oppositions go up against our rushing attack. But anyway, back to my initial story about what Callahan had to say. And he fired off some shots at Jay. And the biggest thing he was talking about was Dwayne Haskins and development. Someone asked him about the development of Dwayne Haskins and young players in general. And he said, look, man, when you draft a player in the first round, especially one at the quarterback position, you have to get them ready. So that was the first shot, pop, 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 that he fired off at Jay. And he said, you got to do something to get them ready. Pop, pop, pop. He said, look, whether, and this wasn't particularly at Jay when he said, look, you got to do something, whether it's draft the left tackle in the first or second round, get him a receiver, or whatever the case may be. You got to get him some pieces, and then you got to get him ready because you drafted him in the first round for a reason. So you need to get him ready. And so, I don't know if we necessarily did that to begin with, but, we've done that of late. Pop, 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 pop. So, the development thing is always tricky because teams go about getting their quarterback, running back, receiver, whomever ready in different ways. And he talked about different guys that had to step in over the years since he's been here in Washington. And he referenced a bunch of offensive linemen. And the easiest reason for that is because he was the offensive line coach. So obviously he knew when a guy had to come out and a guy had to go in. You know what I mean? So he talked about when Spencer Long got injured and Chase Rouillet had to come in. He talked about earlier in the season when the Redskins were looking at some of their younger players at some of these positions along the offensive line and how you got to get all of these guys ready. He talked about Cam Sims and how he's taking first-team reps in the slot and how you just got to be prepared everywhere and you got to get these young guys ready to play. And so I thought that was pretty interesting. Outside of that, nothing really of note was said by Bill Callahan, but I thought that was a pretty interesting dialogue there between he and the reporters and, the whole not being ready and getting, young guys ready. He definitely was firing off shots at Jay, but that's not the first. And it might not be the last time he fires off some shots at Jay before this thing is all said and done. He's got 3 more weeks to do it. So if if you got some more ammunition and you want to go ahead and fire them all off before you're done, you got 3 weeks to do it, brother. So I suggest you load it up and you get ready to fire and squeeze because you only got 3 weeks left to be the Redskins head coach. And so let's get to in other news. And in other news for us is going to be how the Redskins can get a win on Sunday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Not a lot of news for the Redskins today. Obviously, we all heard the news about the 10 players that have been charged with health fraud and trying to buck the system for that cash. And the most notable name in that group was Clint Portis. But I'm talking about that on my podcast. That's not a discussion for here. You know what I mean? So we jump into Week 15, Redskins at FedEx Field. Almost slipped up and said home. Redskins at FedEx Field taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what is a crying shame with this football game is I do not want to win this game. I really don't. Because I feel like the second overall pick is within reach. I want everybody to play exceptionally well, but the Redskins just fall short in this football game. And I think that's going to ultimately happen. But the thing that's really frustrating is that this is such a winnable game. I mean, the Eagles stink. I mean, this is such a winnable game. My God. Really, the next 2 weeks are really winnable football games. And I hate giving away games. I do. Especially in a division. Anytime you can get them, you want them. Because they're so precious. You know what I mean? They're like jewels. And anytime you get a chance to pick one up, shine it up, and stick it in your damn pocket, you'll want to do that. And we got a golden opportunity to do that in week 15 because the Eagles are trash. They're tragic. They have nothing on offense. They are so decimated. Alshon Jeffrey, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names. Just put on IR. D-Jax hasn't seen the end zone since he saw us in week 1. He's been injured the whole season. He's not playing. Their running back position, decimated by injuries. Their wide receiver position, they had 1 receiver left by the time the game ended. Greg Ward Jr., okay? 1 wide receiver and 3 tight ends. That's what they finished the game with. There was a story that came out on Tuesday, the night after the game finished, that their backup quarterback, Josh McCown, who's 89 years old, was prepared to go in the game as a wide receiver if someone else went down. Unbelievable. That's how bad the Eagles are right now. They're ripe for the picking. And I don't want it. I don't want it. But this is how we can get it. Because it's not about what I want. It's what those players on the field want. And if they want it bad enough, the dub is there for them to go get. But I told everyone on Monday, we had a powwow as a family. All right, we sat down with the Eagles, the Giants, the Cowboys. We all sat down in a room and we discussed how we can make this division look better than it has for the first 15 weeks of the season. And the conclusion that we came up with as a collective group, as the NFC East, as family members, was that somebody's got to represent this division at 9-7. We've never had a division winner at less than 9-7. We don't want to start now. So in order to make that come to fruition, the Cowboys need to beat the Rams on Sunday. I don't think they are, but they need to do that. But more importantly, just one of them has to finish at 9-7. And everyone really agreed in the room. The Cowboys were a little apprehensive. They didn't really want to come to terms, but they understand what's at stake here. And they said, you know what? We'd like to be the team to get to 9-7, but if we don't take care of the Rams on Sunday, we'll give you our blessing. You go right ahead, go get 9-7, and we'll fall back. So we've come to an agreement that somebody's got to get to 9-7. And honestly, at this point, I could care less who it is. Cowboys, Eagles, doesn't make me one bit of difference. Somebody's got to get to 9-7 and represent this division well. And honestly speaking, I don't want either one of those teams to get into the playoffs and do anything but lose and go home. All right. Now that's where my allegiance stops. All right. We're family members. I want you to represent this family well by getting to the playoffs with a respectable record. Once you get there, I want you to be dismissed as soon as possible. So I told the Eagles and I told the Giants, and the Giants at first were like, no, Eli's playing. I'm not signing up. And I said, look, man, this ain't about your damn ego, and this ain't about Eli, all right? We have to come together as a family and do what's for the good of the family, and that's to send a 9-7 team to the postseason. There are all these 10, 11 win teams already, and here we are at 6-7. It's disgusting, all right? It's vomit and cringeworthy. So we got to get our act together, and unfortunately, that means the next 2 out of 3 weeks, we got to lose to opponents that we could probably beat. The Cowboys are ripe, just like these Eagles are. Unfortunately, it's not our place to beat these teams. It's our place to lay down, get this second pick in the draft, but more importantly, allow them to go and get to 9 wins. That's our job. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if the Giants lose on Sunday to the Dolphins, and I think they're going to win that game, okay? I really do. And I think the Giants have a chance to beat us next week. But let's just say that we beat the Giants next week and the Dolphins beat them this week. And we come to the realization that the Giants aren't winning any more games and they're not coming off of the 2 spot. At that moment, that's when I say, to hell with the Cowboys in week 17. All right? At that moment, I'm like, Eagles, you do your thing. And if they take care of the Cowboys in week 16 and they take care of us this week like they're supposed to, and they get to that final week and they're at 8-7 and they got a chance to get to 9-7, the Giants are going to lay down like they're supposed to, because we already talked about that. But more importantly, I want to beat the Cowboys' ass at that point. If they're out of it and they ain't got shit to play for and we ain't got shit to play for and we're not getting the number 2 pick, well, let's go beat their ass. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. For this particular week, here is how we can beat the Eagles. Don't turn the football over. run the football and throw the football. Okay, it's really simple. The Eagles are really bad on defense in the secondary. All right. The Eagles are anemic on offense right now. Oh, so I'll give you a real breakdown. So here's the first thing we got to do. We can't allow Carson Wentz to escape the pocket. Okay. For as bad as Wentz was on Monday at times, and the guys around him, it wasn't just him, he's still exceptional when he gets out of the pocket. Now, he does not want to run anymore. He doesn't want to get hit. However, when he's out of the pocket, he's dangerous still. And as we all know, Carson Wentz has been a Redskin killer his entire career. Every single game, he's absolutely shredding us, whether it's his legs or his arm. He's having a field day. So for me, the number one guy to stop going into this game, even though he doesn't have anybody to throw the football to, is Carson Wentz. Got to stop him. Got to keep him in the pocket. Got to make him uncomfortable, all right? Got to make him uncomfortable and got to make sure that we keep contained, that he does not get outside of the pocket and be allowed to extend plays, because even though they don't have any receivers that scare us, they still have tight ends that can kick our ass because we don't cover the tight end very well. They still have talented running backs like Miles Sanders. Jay Ajayi is back. I don't know how much they're going to continue to use him. But that Boston Scott guy, he looks like Darren Sproles 1.5. So they've still got weapons. All right. Zach Ertz has never seen a Redskin team he didn't like. So Ertz still hurts if we're not careful. All right. And also Dallas Goedert, he can bless us. All right. So I caution you, just because the receivers stink, and they may get Nelson Aguilar back, all right, but just because they don't have anything at receiver doesn't mean we can't be blessed by Carson Wentz. Keep his ass in the pocket, keep him contained, make him uncomfortable. That's goal number one. Number two, don't allow him to have pressure taken off of him by the run game. We seem to not be able to stop the run consistently for whatever reason, especially out on the edges. Teams seem to get outside, and the Eagles love to run outside. They have speed. That's where you showcase your speed, out on the edges, on the outside. We seem to have a very difficult time flushing runs back to the inside, washing everything back inside. We continuously let people get outside and have fun, run and have fun. Well, we got to find a way to not allow that to happen. First, stop the run. And the Eagles may do that themselves. Doug Peterson really doesn't want to run the football. But if you give him an opportunity, he will. Like we did on the final drive of the Eagles game in week 1, where he said, haven't really run it today. Having a little bit of success. How about I run it down your throat for the next 7 minutes and end the game? All right, cool. Sounds like a plan. How about we not let that happen this game? All right. And how about we cover Zach Ertz? That's another novel concept. I know. Very tricky. We struggle with tight ends. But if you can find a way to limit 86 because there are no receivers really out there to throw to, maybe Wentz will struggle. Maybe. The Giants they never seem to figure that out. That Ertz is the one guy that's getting the rock. And so he had to hurt. Ertz had to hurt. Well, let's not get hurt by Ertz. We know it's coming. How about we stop it? All right. Now you get to the defensive side. There are going to be opportunities for shots down the field. Guys are going to be open. Oh, my God. If Terry's streaking down the field, I need him to get the football. I need it this week. There will be opportunities. The Eagles are aggressive as a blitzing team, especially when you get towards midfield. That's when they try to rev it up a bit. And Jim Schwartz tries to get a little aggressive. They know that we have a young quarterback that has struggled with complex looks, so he may try to do some exotic things. I don't really care at this point. If they give you some looks, where guys are open, make them pay. Make them pay. The Eagles, they're not great against the run, but they're not trash against the run either. But I've seen teams have success. I watched the Eagles or the Seahawks rack up rush yards on their way to a low-scoring affair and a victory. I saw Saquon Barkley have some success last week. I've seen teams gut them on the ground. So what I'm saying is we can have success. We've actually run the football pretty well the last month or so. I think it could continue. And if it does, it's going to set up play action fake. They're going to get nosy. They're going to start inching up towards the line of scrimmage. And when they do, and they leave one of those suspect ass corners one-on-one, you got to make them pay. You got to make them pay. And I think we're going to get opportunities in this game to get some chunk plays, and Dwayne cannot miss. I think that's what it's going to come down to is when opportunities present themselves, whether it's offensively or defensively, hell, special teams too, can the Redskins take advantage? If they do, I think they're going to have a legitimate shot at winning this game. If they don't, I think they will lose this football game in a tightly contested affair. And ultimately, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm banking on. And that's what I am predicting as I have the Redskins losing this game 20-18. Here's how we get to 20-18. The Eagles start out the game fast because that's what everyone does against the Redskins these days. And when I say start off the game fast, I'm not talking 14-0. I'm talking 10-0 this time. All right, but the Redskins rally back, cut the deficit to 10-6 at halftime. In the second half, the Eagles come out, immediately score a touchdown, and go up 17-6. The Redskins then kick 2 more field goals. Now they're trailing 17-12. The Eagles put together a methodical drive in the fourth quarter that gets them a field goal and a 20-12 lead with about 3 minutes left in the football game. The Redskins then take the football. Haskins takes them down the field. They ultimately get into the end zone and have to go for 2 for the tie, where they fail on the 2-point conversion, and the Eagles survive 20-18 as the Redskins fall to 3-11 on the season. And the Eagles somehow miraculously climb back to 500 at 7-7 on the season. Looking forward to your score and more down in the comment section of this video. What do you think is going to happen? More importantly, what do you want to happen? Do you want to beat the Eagles? It's family business, all right? These aren't the Indianapolis Colts. It's not the Miami Dolphins or the Jets or the Lions, all right? It's a family member. So are you at this point saying, to hell with a draft pick? We got a chance to bust up the Eagles' postseason hopes. Same with the Cowboys in Week 17. And just for the sake of just because, why not beat the Giants? Where do you stand on this? You want to win, or do you want to go for that draft pick? I really think the Giants are going to win this week. So we'll see what happens, but I'm dying to read your comments in the comment section. Score and more down below. And that's going to do it for this installment of the Redskins Nightly News. I am, of course, your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. We got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Skins fans for life. I'm your man, Louie T. Getting out of here. You guys have a great weekend. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the Louie T Network if you haven't already done so. New episode of the Louie T Network podcast coming your way tomorrow. Be on the lookout for that. And this has been the Redskins Nightly News. I'm your man, Louie T. Adios. I'm Yana. Have a good one.
Louie T.